you are well known as a famous public intellectual, but it sounds like this book is perhaps one written to the widest audience you've ever written for.
Yeah, let's hope it gets it. I hope so. You never know. I mean, different countries are even different, I find. I find that in the U.S., the larger public rarely buys works of philosophy these days, and I think it's partly that they think philosophy is not for them, or it's too lofty and it looks down at them. Some Americans think philosophy is relentlessly atheistic, and America is a very religious country, so I do make a great point of the fact that I take religion very seriously, and I'm an active member of my synagogue. But it's still, in America, that people are very skeptical of philosophy. In the Netherlands, I go there, and I give a book talk, and there might be 500 people there, and I'm amazed. I think, what are these 500 people doing? They've bought tickets to hear me speak. So it's like a different world, and I find that Germany is a little bit like that too. Italy is a little bit like that. And India is not exactly like that, but the newspapers. I can get an op-ed published more easily in India than I can in the United States by far. So it's just a funny thing about the world, that the philosophy resonates differently in different places. But this book, so far as the U.S. is concerned, it's going to be the most public. And my editor now wants to publish it on the 4th of July to make a certain statement about American identity. So we'll see. You know, it could fall flat, it could not, who knows. The book of mine that's been the biggest seller worldwide is my book on the future of the humanities in liberal education. That's been translated into 20 languages in countries, some of whom don't even have universities. Like there's a Vietnamese translation and there are no universities in Vietnam. So it's a puzzle sometimes how things work. And the Sinhalese translation is in its second printing. So I don't even know who my readers are in those countries, but in the U.S., I don't have so many readers, and I really would like to have more. And I'm trying very hard to have readers on both the left and the right.
Now that idea of the importance of the humanities very much infuses the lecture you're going to be giving at the conference. Can you give us a little bit of a preview about the ideas in your paper for the conference?
Well, I talk about the founding of our law school in 1902, and the person who actually whose name is on the chair that I hold, so I got curious about what name is going to be attached to me, so I did a little research on him. He was the chief architect of our law school, Ernst Freund, and he was a social critic. He was a practicing lawyer, but he was also an academic political scientist, and he really thought, so this is a time of great animus and hostility toward new immigrants in the early years of the 20th century. It was a time when immigrants, the famous trial of Sacco and Vanzetti, were framed for murder that they didn't commit, a time when they wanted to deport immigrants, and it was also a time when there were other upheavals. The law of marriage was under debate, all kinds of things that are very resonant today. So I want to talk about that moment and why there are issues on the table now that were the same issues that Freund was thinking about. And what he thought was lawyers shouldn't just learn black letter law, which is what was happening at Harvard, which was supposed to be the be-all and end-all of law schools. He thought that would just produce docile accomplices of the status quo. So he thought they better learn to think critically. And even though at that time and to the present day, all law students had already had an undergraduate degree of some type, he thought they needed to learn more. They needed to learn some philosophy and critical thinking about justice. They needed to learn social science methods and political science. They needed to learn economics. And so he wanted an interdisciplinary law school. And the president of the university said, "Oh, you mean you want a graduate school?" He said, "No, it's practicing lawyers that need that, because otherwise they just sort of slide along and they get along and go along." And Freund courageously fought for that interdisciplinary conception, which is what we've got today, but it's under attack. And I talk because I don't know so much about the situation in Australia, and I'm very eager to learn more. But I talk about the attack in America, which is now saying, oh, all of that stuff is useless. Let's reduce legal education to 2 years and then cut out all this, the frills, so to speak, of interdisciplinarity. And I'm saying that's actually very misguided. And so we hope that the kind of interloper that I am will long continue. And we do have quite a lot of interlopers. Most of them have a law degree and a PhD. I don't have a law degree. But there are quite a few who, in different law schools, who are economists without a law degree and others as well. So I think it's probably good that most of the people in a law school should have a law degree, but they can also have a PhD, which, what did I say in the paper? I think it's like 15 of our faculty actually have PhDs out of 38 faculty. And so they're all interdisciplinary in one way or another.
Reading the paper that you're going to give, Professor Nussbaum, I was reminded of the sixth of Wallace Stevens' 6 Significant Landscapes, which you may recall is rationalists wearing square hats, think in square rooms, looking at the floor, looking at the ceiling. They confine themselves to right-angled triangles. If they tried rhomboids, cones, waving lines, ellipses, as far as, for example, the ellipse of the half moon, rationalists would wear sombreros. So how does the legal rationalist wearing a sombrero approach the teaching of law in the modern university?
Oh, boy. Well, I think it's a team. I mean, you've got to have a team. So we have a couple of historians, a bunch of economists, political scientists, and 2 philosophers. And then, of course, all the other law people who interact with us all the time. And I do think co-teaching is very, very important because, you know, here if I were just wearing a sombrero and I was there, only the students who chose me would take my courses, but you need to infuse it into the whole of the law school. So I try various things. I co-teach with an economist. I co-teach with a very conservative colleague. And then, you know, that way we get the most conservative students and the most liberal students in the same classroom together. So I think we do it in lots of different ways. But one way, of course, is that we have lots and lots of elective courses. And after the first year, then pretty much everything is by choice. But that's not good enough because then you preach to the converted. So you need to have some avenue to infuse it into the more mainstream part of the curriculum. And that, I think, is by collegiality and co-teaching.